Howdy guys, I'm Jason, and that's my helper Pinto the dog. Today on AutoEdits Jeep, I'm gonna walk you around the Jeep and show you what you should do after that big epic trail ride you just had, and show you some of the things you should pay attention to, and I'm gonna feature some of the heroic parts that I've done to this Jeep and things that I can recommend. So let's dig in. First, let's catch you up on the trip we just got back from. My buddy Kris from PowerStop Brakes came up with a great idea to adventure into Baja, California and see some amazing sights. Run parts of the Baja 1000 race course and generally have an amazing time in Mexico with our PowerStop equipped rigs. So when you guys notice that Pinto's on my old worn winch line out front here, it's just because I'm being a good neighbor. She likes to chase the FedEx guy and the UPS guy, and you can't have that, you know? And she also runs off into the hills and chases squirrels 4 hours at a time, and that's not being a responsible dog owner. Once she kind of gets her, if I can figure out a way to train her to just stay here and not be a jerk to the UPS guy, because he brings good things, Pinto. I don't understand why you don't like him. Anyway, so that's why she's on this. She's a happy dog. She has a very good life. So just want you guys to not be too concerned about it. Let's walk around the outside of the Jeep. This trip wasn't really hard on the exterior of the Jeep. There's a few new brush scratches here, as you can see. And if you're gonna trail ride your rig, you're gonna have to just be okay with that stuff. So no big deal. The rest of the Jeep, there wasn't really any serious rock crawling on this trip. So the exterior of the Jeep didn't really take that much of an abuse. We're gonna go convertible. All right, I got the Sunrider. And then,
oh, life is great,
right? Let's talk about the Sunrider. This was amazing. This option right here, just made for when the weather was perfect. It just added that extra bit of just awesomeness and exposure to the elements. You guys might notice I have my solid doors on, and that's because this wintertime I was running around with Pinto up in the snow, and it was just nicer to have the power windows to be able to make adjustments on the fly to make it nicer for her. And the core doors, you know, with the zipper windows, they're great for the summer runs, but it was just that variety and that making Pinto comfortable is why I went back to this. Core doors are going right back on soon. All right, so I'm gonna pull the Jeep in the garage in a minute to make sure to show you guys all of the naughty bits underneath. And there's a couple of really fun things or really interesting things to share about some of the suspension things that went on during this trip. Some heroic parts that I'm gonna share with you down there. So hang on for that. Really quick, I did the Sport Gate tire mount from MetalCloak not that long ago, instead of having that really beefy swing out bumper mount. And I gotta tell you guys, if you guys watch that video going 70 mile an hour down the Baja 1000 race course, hitting stuff hard and going very fast, this thing was solid. You can see it here in the videos. You know, and I don't know if, like you guys, having your tire in your rearview mirror constantly, especially when you have a giant tire like this that takes up so much of your rearview mirror, bouncing and wiggling as you go down the highway is kind of annoying. This didn't do that at all. So this right here, we'll keep you updated on how it lasts, but for now, this is a home run, and this ease of access to the back here, there's my lighting kit from a job I had last week. But yeah, so having that access to the back here, and then this being that solid was great. Obviously, you guys have seen the tailgate mount. The gas can mount worked out perfectly. So home run, like that, and it did great on the trip. Now I have to pull the Jeep in the garage, and that means I have to move the Mustang, which now is a driver. I just have to drive it out, and it's any excuse to do that is a good excuse. Wait till you listen to this thing, and don't worry, there is, for those 8 of you that love the Mustang build, I have a driving full test drive video in this thing coming up next week. Cold start. Yeah. Hi, buddy. Whoa. As much racket as this thing makes, Pinto actually loves riding in it, so come here. Good girl. All right, stay out of the way. I gotta pull the Jeep in. Come on, watch out. Watch out. Watch out. You gonna get in? Get in. Get in. All right, let's dig in. You can come out of there? Come on, girl. Come out of there. Oh, I have a car dog. I love it. Good girl. All right, we'll go for a ride in a little bit. Promise. So I did just wash the exterior of the Jeep and kind of air down the inside. I haven't done a full, real big clean on it. You guys have seen that video, hopefully by now, of how I show you how to do the real deep clean on your Jeeps. But so the engine bay isn't clean yet, but it's a good time to just double check everything, make sure everything's good. Here's a good example of what your air cleaner goes through on a trip like that. So I still have the Flowmaster Delta Force, and it is, I'm gonna have to pull that out and blow it out because it is crusty, dirty, really, you know, big pack of guys kicking up a lot of dust. So that needs a little bit of maintenance, so check your air filter. I'm gonna check the oil just to make sure what the oil usage is like. If you're burning oil, if you're low, if you have water in the oil. We had a lot of fender deep water on this one. Oil looks perfect, so we're good there. But these are the things that you should do, regular maintenance. I don't know if you guys have JK steering things where the power steering just leaks a lot. I have noticed my coolant reservoir is loose, and I think it's cracked because it's empty. So that is going to be a video soon. Engine coolant reservoir on the JK's known thing. It just is in a spot where it wobbles until it cracks, and then it fails. You got to replace it. So I'm going to do that. I haven't had any overheating issues, knock on wood, yet, so I'm going to stay ahead of that. But so that's what you do. You get in here and you just check. Brake fluid's great. Now you guys remember I just did the big brake upgrade on this, so I did a full system bleed and flush on this thing. So everything's good. So that's just the stuff to keep an eye on in here. All right, now, hi buddy, you gonna help? Every time I put down these little blue moving blankets, that's the cue for Pinto to come on in and come lay down. You're gonna come help me check out the underneath the Jeep. So it goes without saying to get under your Jeep and just eyeball all of the things that you just drug over rocks and did things. So let's get under there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and jack the Jeep up in a minute because there's a couple of things I want to check that I know went wrong. Like if you watch that Baja video, you know I bottomed out at about 70 miles an hour into a huge hole, and I got some things to check out on the front. But while we're under here, this Tom Woods drive shaft's now been in here almost 3 years and is doing fantastic. And you'll notice here that there's some surface rust on a lot of things, and that's because I drove through a lot of salt water, deep salt water on this trip. So that's something that I'm going to come back through here and do another detail like you've seen in my other video. I'll put a link up there to the chassis detail that I did on the truck, and I toolbox buddy all of this stuff, and it helps keep that in good shape. But otherwise, you just take a look at everything, make sure there's nothing visibly wrong, damaged. Everything looks pretty solid back here. And right now, let me show you how I jack. I've been asked this a few times in the comments of how I actually jack up the Jeep and put it on jack stand. So let's go walk through that process. All right, so for my jack, for my main jack, I use this, it says Michelin on it, but it's just a generic jack that I got at the Napa down the street. It's a 7,000-pound jack. Now, it's a bit overkill because you're never lifting your entire vehicle all at once. You're always lifting one side or the other. So it's more than enough. And I put this little block of wood here to help disperse the weight distribution. Now, because the front of the Jeep, the front axle, you have this pumpkin right here. This is your differential, and it's offset in the front, so that way the drive shaft can shoot next to the transmission, whereas the rear differential, you could lift right under the pumpkin. And people do that. That is the stronger place to lift, but that always lifts the Jeep awkwardly. I have been getting away with doing by lifting here. I'm sure somebody in the comments will say you can't do this because this tube is weak. I don't know, it's been working for me. So what I do is to just disperse the weight a little bit. I put a block of wood right there. Just make sure right now is a good time to remember I have the back tire, the parking brake set, so the Jeep's not gonna roll on me here. And so I just lift it right next to the pumpkin, as you can see. Just be careful. And then you go up. Make sure everything's solid, and you just lift the Jeep. And there you go, Jeep is now off the ground. And in this particular instance, I'm gonna do something unique. Normally you could just take your jack stands, and these are the jack stands I use. These are from Pet Boys. So these are the big red jacks, and these are 6-ton jacks. Again, overkill, but they have the reach that I need because working on 4x4s, you need a little bit taller reach. For the Mustang, I use these much lighter weight jack stands. So normally you would just put these jacks right under the front axle, but since I know that I have something I need to repair that I want to show you guys up over here, I need to droop the front axle because I also want to nitrogen charge the shocks, and that means I need to let this suspension go to full droop, and so it's time to droop my junk down. So then what I do is I bring my jacks over to the frame rails here and find a nice spot to bite there, right underneath the frame rails. We'll bring this jack over to this side. Try to get it kind of even. Here we go. So you have your jacks under the frame rails here. Now, since I want to drop this thing down, and to get this Jeep high enough to drop it down with the tires on would require me to go up another 3 feet, and I just don't have that capability here. So now that the Jeep's stable, I have jack stands in a good spot under the frame, let's buzz the tires, the wheels off, and then that way I can then lower the whole thing down and let it all droop out. All right, so now I double check to make sure that my jacks are both at the right height or equal height, and we can now lower the Jeep down. Now is a good time to make sure your jack stands are solid against the frame, and then slowly come down. Once you have what you think is nice and stable here, I always just, if it can withstand this, then I can get under it. If it can't withstand a good shaking like this, you have no business being underneath your vehicle working. All right. While you're up in your Jeep's business, it's a good idea just to grease any ball joints or any fittings that you find. Might as well. All right, so as you guys can see, there's a lot going on up in the front area here. I just want to make it clear that what I did on this last trip isn't something that you should just expect to do to your Jeep without some sort of repercussions. These aren't designed as high-speed desert blasters. This thing did fantastic. I mean, we gave Kris in the Raptor quite a run for his money there, and we had a lot of fun doing it. But there's an expense to that. You can't expect these components to hang on to that. Now, you guys may notice, if you follow me on the social medias, AutoEdits Jason on Instagram, you'll know that I put in these MetalCloak Duro foam bump stops the night before I left for this trip. So if you notice up in the top here, I actually think I blew out this bump stop. I just have to show you the difference between a stock bump stop that goes inside there and the MetalCloak one that I put in there. These things did fantastic. I mean, one of the heroes of this entire trail ride is this thing right here. This is the best $89 you're gonna spend on your Jeep. So you put these at all four corners, and it made the thing take all that high speed bottoming out and jumping the Jeep in stride. Like, it almost instilled too much confidence. Like, I pushed the Jeep farther than I should have or would have if I had these stock lame bumpers in there. So this superhero on this little thing. So I'm going to replace this one in here. Ordered up just a front set just to throw these in here. So this is a highly recommended upgrade. And now for the star of the show. The whole reason I actually got invited onto the Mexico trip was this, the PowerStop Big Brake Kit for the JKs. This is fairly new release from them. It's just a fantastic, it's a fun install, and these things, I mean, again, there was a couple things involved. Between these and these bump stops, the Jeep felt way sportier than it should have on the Baja 1000 course. I was hauling tail out there and had that confidence. I found myself braking deeper, like sports car deep, into dirt turns and just letting the Jeep body shift and drift because I had so much power to just modulate with my foot. So these things did great. Absolute home run upgrade. I'm going to put a link into my Amazon storefront where you could actually get this kit, or what I had on this Jeep for a couple of years was the Z36 truck and tow, just pads and rotor kit. As you guys saw that install I did years ago on this thing, and it was nowhere near as good as this, but it was amazing. So if you're in the market to just do a huge brake upgrade to your vehicle at a really reasonable cost, the Z36 pads and rotors are like $350. They're in my Amazon store. Like, buy them from there. Help me out, please. If you do get that kit, and it's a super easy install, you don't even have to replace the calipers. It's just pads and rotors. So it's a couple hour install, and makes a huge impact on your vehicle. So it's tough. I think for the budget-minded, go for the Z36 pads and rotor kit. Having look at these things, no brake dust in there, especially driving this thing like a race truck. That's one of the things right there that it's almost, you get spoiled by that. And then if you want just uncompromised, a fun, easy install, go with the big brake kit. Go look at both of those and see what fits best for you, but it's definitely something that gets overlooked. Don't overlook that in your build, because this is a big deal. Once you add 1,000+ pounds to your rig, that really, the stock brakes were not designed to accommodate that. So doing something to your brakes is an absolute mandatory thing. So there you go. Those are the outstanding heroes of this last trip. Definitely this big brake kit made me feel like I was driving a race car. These bump stops, the MetalCloak bump stops, saved me from an absolute catastrophe up here. Being able to absorb that impact the repeated impacts, and then plus the one huge impact that I made up here was really, really, again, huge, heroic parts. While we're up here, and I got these tires off, let me talk about these things right here. I can absolutely tell the difference between having so much lighter weight on all four corners. If you guys remember the video where I actually mounted up these Vision forged Manx bead locks and the Milestar Patagonia MT 38-inch tires and saved 11 pounds per corner, per wheel, it made a big deal. I could feel it as I drove. The Jeep just felt a little bit more nimble. Even though I have all this heavy duty armor and skid plating, the Jeep just feels a little bit more nimble, a little bit more fun to drive in the high speed stuff. And I've done some rock crawling with it, and again, you know, it just was great. So these have been fantastic. They're turning out to be an amazingly durable and capable, and I get 16 miles to the gallon around town. It's just, they're kind of unheard of in the capability. So I think I have about 12,000 miles on these right now. The one thing I could say maintenance-wise, rotate them, enjoy them. So yeah, another hero. Hey buddy, where you been? Sure enough, the blue blanket comes back out, and here's our trusty friend Pinto. As she gets older, it's all about the comfort for her. Oh buddy. Oh man, I love this dog. So there you go, heroic parts, a routine that's good to do when you use your Jeep above and beyond the normal call of duty, as I call it. But there you go. I'm so stoked with the components on the Jeep so far. I haven't found a real weak link yet, and that's amazing. That's because I've done a ton of homework on everything I've done on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and button this up, finish the passenger side, toolbox buddy the rest of this thing, and hit the trail again. We'll see you soon, don't worry. There's lots more content coming, like a full how-to install video on the bump stops themselves. This one was getting a little long, so check back soon for that. Plus, in that video, I'll show you how to do a home nitrogen shock charge with this handy kit from PowerTank. Go to the Amazon storefront, the AutoEdits Amazon storefront. If you can buy anything from there, it helps me out a little bit. So thank you for doing that. I've noticed a couple people actually bought Milestar tires off of there. That's pretty cool. And a couple people bought PowerStop brakes. And I usually have a link to the cheapest price in the Amazon store. So usually I'm pretty ahead on that. So go there, help me out. And until next time, enjoy your drive. Right, Vince? Oh, I have one more saying. Let me know what you guys think. Give me some feedback in the comments. Your next great adventure begins with you. Enjoy the drive. Right? That's good. That's going to be my new thing. So we're going to wrap it up with that. See you next time. Good girl. All right. More toolbox, buddy. Let's go to work.